The noise of the commercial airliner was a low, constant hum, a sound so far removed from the percussive chaos of his last 7 months that Sergeant Jack Riley felt an unsettling calm. He stared out the window, watching the patchwork of green fields and suburban sprawl of the Midwest glide by beneath a canvas of soft white clouds. Each passing mile brought him closer to home, closer to her, Emily. Her name was a silent prayer on his lips, a mantra he'd repeated in the stifling heat of the desert, in the tense quiet of a patrol, in the fleeting solace of a pre-dawn watch. She was the picture on the inside of his helmet, the last face he saw before closing his eyes at night, the first thought he had upon waking. The thought of her was a physical thing, a warmth that spread through the cold, tired parts of his soul. He imagined the scene. The airport gate, her long red hair a beacon in the crowd, her smile a brilliant flash that would erase the last 7 months of sand and struggle. He imagined her running into his arms, her hug a tight embrace that would finally, truly, bring him home. He had been so careful with his plans, a surprise homecoming. He hadn't told her his exact return date, wanting the moment of their reunion to be unburdened by anticipation, pure and raw. He had left her in the spring, a vibrant, energetic woman who was always moving. She was an elementary school teacher, her days a whirlwind of noisy children and colorful construction paper. Her free time was no different. She was a runner, a gardener, a whirlwind of boundless energy. He had been a whirlwind of a different kind, focused, disciplined, a man of action. They were two halves of a whole, a perfect balance of kinetic energy and grounded purpose. As the plane descended, the air thickened with a nervous anticipation. Jack adjusted the collar of his dress blues, a uniform that felt alien and constricting after months of fatigues. His heart hammered a steady, hopeful rhythm against his ribs. The plane touched down with a gentle jolt, and the cabin erupted in a smattering of applause. Jack smiled, the first genuine smile he had managed in a long, long time. He was among the first to deplane, a wave of eager passengers behind him. He strode through the jet bridge, the sterile fluorescent light, a stark contrast to the unforgiving desert sun he was accustomed to. He could already hear the muffled sounds of the terminal, the buzz of a life he had been disconnected from for so long. He imagined his parents, his sister, maybe a few old friends, and Emily, always Emily. He stepped into the main terminal, and the world seemed to stop. A small crowd had gathered. His mother, her face lined with worry and unshed tears, rushed forward and wrapped him in a fierce, trembling hug. His father, a stoic man who rarely showed emotion, clapped him on the shoulder, his eyes moist. His sister Sarah was there, holding a small flag, but no Emily. His smile faltered. "Mom, where's Em?" he asked, his voice low, a note of confusion creeping in. His mother pulled back, her hands still gripping his arms. Her eyes, usually so warm, were clouded with a deep, sorrowful concern. "Jack, honey," she began, her voice cracking. "There's something we need to talk about." The words hit him like a physical blow. The festive, celebratory atmosphere he had envisioned evaporated in an instant, replaced by a sudden, chilling dread. His parents had been vague in their emails, always upbeat, always focusing on his return. He had dismissed it as a way of sparing him the mundane worries of home. Now, a different, darker possibility began to take shape in his mind. The quiet in the car on the way home was deafening. He tried to ask questions, but his father just gripped the steering wheel tighter, and his mother simply patted his arm, a gesture of comfort that only fueled his anxiety. "What happened? Is she okay?" he finally asked, his voice a hoarse whisper. His mother took a shaky breath. "She's home, Jack. She's strong. She's been so strong." The words were meant to be reassuring, but they only served to deepen the pit of fear in his stomach. What kind of strength did she have to show? A quiet, determined strength. The kind of strength you need when you had to rebuild your life from the ground up. As they pulled up to their little bungalow, the sight of it felt both familiar and alien. The lawn was freshly mowed. The flower beds were meticulously weeded, a testament to his father's hard work. But there was a silence to the house, a stillness that was wrong. The front door was slightly ajar, a welcoming gesture that felt hollow and forced. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. The air was warm, smelling of cinnamon and freshly brewed coffee. He heard voices from the back of the house, a low murmur of conversation. He dropped his duffel bag on the floor with a thud, the sound echoing in the silent house. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for whatever he was about to see. He walked down the hallway, the photos on the wall, a gallery of their life together, their wedding, their first anniversary, pictures of them hiking, running, laughing, a montage of a life that felt like a distant, beautiful dream. He reached the living room. The TV was on, a baseball game playing, the volume low. He saw his wife. She was sitting by the window, a blanket draped over her lap. Her hair was still the same fiery red he remembered, but it was shorter now, framing a face that was thinner. A face that held a quiet weariness he had never seen before. A friend, a neighbor, was sitting on the couch talking to her, their conversation stopping as he walked in. P. took a step forward, his heart pounding so hard he felt it in his ears. He saw it then. The gleaming metal, the smooth ergonomic form, a wheelchair. Emily was sitting in a wheelchair. His mind, trained for combat, for survival, for decisive action, simply shut down. The world went silent. The colors seemed to drain away, and the air left his lungs. "Jack," she said, her voice a soft, uncertain inquiry. He couldn't speak. He tried to force the words out, to tell her he loved her, that he was home, that everything would be okay. But nothing came out. The tears came first, hot and fast, a flood of grief that he had held at bay for 7 months. They weren't tears of pity. They were tears of a soldier who had survived a war, only to find a different kind of war had been waged on the home front, a battle he hadn't been there to fight. They were tears for the girl in the photos, the runner, the dancer, the woman who was always on the move. They were tears for the life they had planned, for the years they had lost, for the simple, beautiful fact that he hadn't been there to hold her hand. He didn't see the wheelchair as a symbol of her weakness, but as a stark, brutal monument to his own helplessness. He had been 1,000 miles away, in a world of violence and danger. And the one person he was supposed to protect had been hurt in the safest place he knew. He fell to his knees, not from weakness, but from the sheer weight of his emotions. He buried his face in his hands and sobbed, the sound a ragged, guttural thing that he hadn't allowed himself to make in years. He felt a soft touch on his hair, Emily's hand. He looked up, his vision blurry with tears. Her eyes were red, too, but there was a fierce, resilient spark in them. She was crying with him, but her tears weren't for herself. They were for him, for his pain, for the raw wound of his homecoming. "Ooh, Jack," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. He pulled himself up to his feet and knelt in front of her, his hands gently holding hers. He looked down at her legs, at the stillness beneath the blanket, and then back up at her face. He saw her pain, the long, arduous journey she had been on, and he saw a strength that was greater than any he had ever witnessed in battle. She was a warrior in her own right, one who had faced an enemy of circumstance and had not broken. For the next few hours, in a quiet, halting conversation, she told him everything. It was a normal Tuesday. She was driving home from school, the day a perfect, ordinary blur of children's laughter and the scent of freshly printed worksheets. A drunk driver, a high-speed collision, a tangle of metal and shattered glass. The doctors had told her that she was lucky to be alive. That she would walk again was not a certainty, but a hope that faded with each passing day. The initial surgery had been a success, but the spinal cord injury had been severe. The physical therapy was grueling, a relentless series of small, incremental battles fought with gritted teeth and a weary spirit. Jack listened, his heart aching with every word. He felt the familiar soldier's instinct rise up in him, the need to solve the problem, to fix the broken thing, to make it right. But he knew, with a terrible, dawning clarity, that he couldn't. This was not a tactical problem he could solve with a team and a rifle. This was a human problem, a slow, painful process of healing and adaptation that he could only witness and support. He spent the next few weeks in a daze, a ghost in his own home. He would wake up in the morning, a sudden jolt of memory reminding him of the new reality. He would watch her, a silent, watchful presence, as she went through her daily routine. He saw the struggle in her eyes as she navigated the house in her wheelchair. The quiet frustration on her face when she couldn't reach something on a high shelf. He wanted to do everything for her, but she refused to be a passive victim. She was independent, stubborn, and fiercely proud. "I can do it, Jack," she would say, her jaw set, as she strained to open a jar of pickles. "You can't baby me. This is my life now. We have to figure it out." One afternoon, he found her in the garage, a place that used to be a shared sanctuary of messy projects and old boxes. She was trying to get a bag of potting soil out of the trunk of her car. He watched her for a moment, the strain on her face, the way her muscles trembled with the effort. He saw the helpless rage in her eyes when the bag slipped from her grasp and fell to the floor, its contents spilling out in a dark, dusty heap. He walked over to her and, without a word, began to scoop the soil back into the bag. She watched him, her eyes glistening. "Jack, I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice full of shame and frustration. "Don't you dare apologize," he said, his voice gentle but firm. He finished the task, sealed the bag, and then looked at her. "I'm a team of one, Emily, and you're my teammate. You don't have to do it alone. That's what a team is for." She broke down then, her face crumpling with the grief she had held back for so long. He knelt in front of her, and for the first time since he came home, he simply held her. He didn't try to fix anything or solve anything. He just held her, a silent presence of love and support, allowing her to feel the pain she had been so stoically repressing. As the weeks turned into months, they began to rebuild their life, not to restore the old one, but to build a new one. Jack started going with her to physical therapy. He learned the names of the muscles, the exercises, the long, slow, grinding process of recovery. He became her cheerleader, her coach, her quiet, unwavering support system. He would push her chair on long walks through the park, and they would talk for hours, not just about the accident, but about everything. They talked about his deployment, about the things he had seen and the scars he carried. Key found himself opening up to her, sharing his own traumas, his own feelings of guilt and helplessness. She was his rock, a quiet, unshakable force that had survived her own battle and was now helping him survive his. Her strength wasn't in her legs, but in her spirit, in her resilience, in the way she had faced her new reality with a quiet dignity. They learned to dance again, to a slow song, with him holding her close and swaying gently. They learned to garden again, with him building raised beds and her tending to the plants from her chair, her hands in the rich, dark soil. They learned that love wasn't about a life free from hardship, but about facing hardship together as a team. One evening, they were sitting on the front porch, a cool autumn breeze rustling the leaves in the trees. Jack was holding her hand, his thumb stroking her knuckles. They watched the sun set, the sky a beautiful, fiery orange. "I was so scared you would look at me and see a burden," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "That you would come home and wish you hadn't." He turned to her, his eyes full of a love so profound it felt like a physical ache. "Emily," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I came home, and I saw a warrior. I saw the strongest person I have ever known. Care. And I broke down because I was so proud of you, and so angry that I wasn't here for you. But I'm here now. And I'm not going anywhere." She smiled, a small, weary, but beautiful smile. She leaned her head on his shoulder, and they sat in the gathering dusk. Two soldiers who had come home from different wars, their scars a testament to their strength. Their love a beacon in the quiet, beautiful darkness. Team, now and forever, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The life they had planned was gone, but the one they were building was, in its own way, more beautiful, more profound, and more real than they could have ever imagined. They were home, together, and that was all that truly mattered.